For setting up the Genmon software, the first thing that needs to be done is installing the operating system onto a microSD card. For that, we'll use the Raspberry Pi Imager, which can be downloaded from Raspberry Pi. The first option here is choose device. You do not have to use that. It just reduces the number of choices in the choose OS step to operating systems that are compatible with that device. So I don't know what device you might be using, so I'm going to skip that step for the moment and just go to the operating system. I recommend the Raspberry Pi OS 32-bit. This does include the graphical desktop if you want to use that. If you are very comfortable with the command line, you're more than welcome to switch to the Lite version, which does not include the graphical user interface. Next, you need to choose your storage device. I've already inserted my microSD card to an adapter and plugged that into a USB port. Your drive letter may be different. If you're on Mac, it'll be a mount point, but it should be, if you're on Windows, a letter D or higher. And if you're on Mac, it'll show up as every other USB device you insert does. Select that and click Next. Now, at this point, you can change the several default settings that Raspberry Pi uses. And I do recommend doing this. You can change the default name of the machine, and that is how you will access Genmon in the future. You can also change the default username and password, which I recommend you do both of for security purposes. You can set up your wireless LAN information and be sure to set up the wireless country. The default is GB for Great Britain. They use different frequencies than are used in the US, and you may not be able to connect your Wi-Fi if you don't get the wireless LAN country set correctly. You can change it later if you need to, but it's easiest to just do it now. You can also set your default time zone and keyboard layout. I strongly recommend you do that as well. If you're in the United States, you're probably going to be in either Eastern Time with New York, Central with Chicago, Mountain with Denver, or Pacific with Los Angeles. There's also an entry for Hawaii and Alaska. If you're outside the US, hopefully you know the appropriate major city in your time zone to pick from, because I don't. Next, you'll want to go to the Services tab, and you will probably want to go ahead and enable SSH. If you do run into a problem and need support with Genmon, there may be command line commands that you need to run to resolve parts of it, and SSH is a great way to access it. If you do end up in that position, we can give you the exact commands you will need through the help process. So you don't have to understand the commands, you just have to be able to run them, and SSH is the method to run them. Options are completely up to you. The enabled telemetry just sends information about the experience back to the Raspberry Pi Foundation. It does not send personal information, so it just helps them improve the product. The other two options are just if you want them or not. I recommend having the eject media clicked, because that will disconnect the drive at the end of the process, so you don't have to remember to do that before yanking it out of your computer. Click Save, click Yes. If you are positive that you selected the correct drive, click Yes again, and then it will begin doing the write. This does take a few minutes, so sit back and have some caffeine. And now that it has finished, I can safely remove the microSD card adapter from my computer and stick the microSD card into the Pi and boot it up. We'll continue in another video.